It is a surah, I think it is very famous. It is very famous in all communities. All communities. And it is more famous during when someone passes away. It is more famous because most of us, we have been taught this, or we saw our predecessors doing that. Now, we know the Quran, all of it, like we said, is blessed, the greatest book. But there's surahs, and sometimes there's special ayahs Allah sent down, specific virtues about them, excellencies, fada'il. The Prophet ﷺ would mention this ayah, let's say like Ayatul Kursi, said this is the greatest ayah. Surat Al-Fatiha, I said that's the greatest surah. Surat Al-Baqarah, he says, أخذها baraka, being close to it, Surat Al-Baqarah, it brings blessings to you. وَتَرْكُهَا حَسَرًا, and leaving it, it will put you into a loss. You'll regret. And another benefit of Surat Al-Baqarah, the Prophet ﷺ said, الشيطان لا يدخل البيت الذي يقرأ في سورة البقرة. The shaitan doesn't enter the house that Surat Al-Baqarah is recited. And other surahs also have excellencies. Not all of them, some of them. Now Surat Yaseen, there is no authentic sahih hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about any of its virtues. Surat Yaseen, there is no authentic hadith about it being excellent in any way. Even though there's a lot of hadith which people they spread and they speak about, but all of them, they are either da'if, weak, or in fact mawdu', fabricated. You cannot ascribe them to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of the hadith which they mention, the hadith which says, "Inna likulli shay'in qalban wa inna qalb al-Qur'ani Surat Yaseen." They say everything has a heart, and the heart of the Quran is Surat Yaseen. I see my uncle is smiling there. He must have heard this hadith before. And then they say, another hadith or the same hadith, وَمَنْ قَرَأَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ لَهُ وَمَنْ قَرَأَ يَسِينَ عَفْوًا, the one who reads Surah Yaseen, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِقِرَاءَتِهَا قِرَاءَةَ الْقُرْآنِ عَشْرَ مَرَّاتٍ. And the one who reads Surah Yaseen, Allah writes for you the excellence of reading the Quran 10 times. Like you read the whole Quran 10 times. This hadith was narrated by Tirmidhi, and he said after the hadith, Al-Imam Tirmidhi said, هذا حديث غريب. This hadith is strange. لا نعرفه إلا من حديث حميد بن عبد الرحمن وهارون أبو محمد شيخ مجهول. And we do not know it except from the hadith of Humayd ibn Abdul Rahman, and one of these people in the isnad is majhul, is not known. Whenever we have a hadith where there's someone who's majhul, unknown, we cannot take that hadith, because we don't take our religion from anonymous people who don't know. طيب. And he said, وَفِي الْبَابِ عن أبي بكر الصديق, and also there's another hadith like this narrated from Abu Bakr. وَلَا يَصِحُّ لِضَعْفِ إِسْنَادِهِ, but even that is not authentic because the isnad is da'if, weak. Now, another hadith they narrate, another hadith, they say, مَنْ قَرَأَ يَاسِينَ فِي لَيْلَةٍ أَصْبَحَ مَغْفُورٌ لَهُ or مَغْفُورًا لَهُ. The one who reads Surat Yaseen at night, he will wake up when all of his sins have been forgiven. He will wake up and all his sins have been forgiven. This hadith is also da'if. Another hadith which they mention is the hadith which says, وَيَاسِينَ قَلْبُ الْقُرْآنِ, and the Yasin is the heart of the Quran. Nobody reads it except that he'll be forgiven. وَقْرَأُهَا عَلَى مَوْتَاكُمْ, and read it on your dead ones. Read it on the people who are dead. This hadith is also da'if. Hadith, it is da'if. Another hadith people they spread is the hadith which says, لوددت أنها في قلب كل إنسان من أمتي. They suppose that the Prophet ﷺ said, I wish that Surat Yaseen is in the heart of every man among my ummah. All of these ahadith are da'if. All of them, none of them is authentically ascribed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? So this thing of reading Yasin on the people who are dead, it has no basis. It has no basis. What has been narrated though, we have to mention, is from one of the Sahabas, one of the Ashab of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm sure none of you have heard of this Sahabi. The Sahabi, his name is Uthman, sorry, not Uthman, Udayf al-Thumali. Udayf al-Thumali. They narrated in the Muslim Imam Ahmad that when he was passing away, the Sahabi Udayf al-Thumali, when he was passing away, he asked the people who are around him, who amongst you memorized Surat Yaseen? And one of them said, I memorized Surat Yaseen. So he said, read it for me. And the person started to read. Before he reached, or when he reached the 40th ayah, this Sahabi Udayf, he passed away. He passed away. He says, so the shuyukh, the scholars, they said that it looks like it is recommended to read Surat Yaseen on the person who is dying, in English, ahsant, not the person who is dead. Because the people who are dead, reading Quran on them does not benefit them. It does not benefit. Now then again, don't forget, this is an action of one Sahabi. It is not from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he did not say it's from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? Some of the scholars, they said, because of this, it is recommended. One of them is Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, alayhi rahmatullah, he said, it is recommended, it is something good. When someone is about to pass away, you see that these are his last moments, you read on him Surah Yasin. And he made the justification, or if you want to say the reason for that. He said, Inna hadha surah, or inna hadhihi surah, because this surah, mushtamilatun ala tawheed wal ma'ad. It talks about tawheed, the greatest subject, the oneness of Allah. Wal ma'ad, and about the next life, the resurrection. Inna hadhihi surata mushtamilatun ala tawheed wal ma'ad. This surah is talking about tawheed and the resurrection. Wal bushra bil jannah liman mata ala tawheed. And it contains the good news, the glad tidings for the one who dies upon tawheed, the good news of al-jannah. Al-jannah. Biqawlihi, the words which Allah said about the man who his story is told to us in Surat Yaseen. Ya layta qawmi ya'lamun bima ghafara li rabbi wa ja'alani min al-mukramin. The person who entered Jannah because of his tawheed. Because of his tawheed. He says, فَتَسْتَبْشِرَ الروح بذلك. فَتَسْتَبْشِرَ الروح بذلك. So the soul will find good news in that. Will find good news in that. وَيَسْهَلْ خُرُوجَهَا. And it will come out easily. This is what Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said. Okay? Even though again, it is an issue of his ijtihad. Others who said that, also some scholars of the madhahib. Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said no. He said no. It is not recommended to read Surat Yaseen on anybody because those hadith are da'if. And that is the statement of most of the scholars. Most of the scholars. And because there is a clear hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says in Sahih al-Bukhari, لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ بِلَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. The people who are passing away, when they are passing away, make them say La ilaha illallah, because that's the greatest thing they can do. So this is just something I wanted to touch on. There is no excellence of Surat Yaseen narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the issue of reading it on the dead, people who are dead already, this is a bid'ah. It's a bid'ah. We see some people, after they just buried the person, they have to sit or stay on that grave and read Surat Yaseen. This is a bid'ah. There's no reading of Quran in the graves, whether it is Surat Yaseen or Fatiha or Nas or Baqarah. The Prophet ﷺ never read Al-Quran fil maqabir, in the graves, never. In fact, he mentioned the opposite. He said, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم مقابر اقرأوا فيها القرآن